Hi, I'm Lola Moore Johnston, your Bloom coach, and I want to talk to you about how I almost let a blind spot take everything. Hey, it's me, Lola Moore Johnston, your Bloom coach, and I empower women of color to thrive in life and business through coaching and community and faith. And I had to come on to tell you on this afternoon how I almost allowed a blind spot to take my blessing. I was having a conversation with someone I really respected and trusted. And somewhere in the middle of the conversation, I started to feel a knot in my stomach because I recognized that the person who I respected and looked up to was becoming frustrated with me. I realized that I was trying to share something I was excited about with them. And because I wasn't sharing it as crisply as they would like, they became frustrated and began to talk down to me. And I noticed myself clamming up and shutting down. I got off of that call quickly. And as I was speaking with my husband about what I experienced, I became snappy with him. I was shut down with him. And I was left to ask a couple of questions as to how it is that I went from excited to shut down. I went on and went to sleep because a nap changes everything. And when I got up not only rested, but with new, refreshed perspective. And I recognized that in my interaction with that person, they hit a trigger. Now, you might be on here tonight or watching maybe in the afternoon or in the morning, but have you ever been triggered by someone else and it caught you by surprise? I wasn't, I was not ready for that. I was vulnerable, I was open, I was excited, and it was almost like that trigger punched me in the mouth. And I felt like I was helpless in that moment. And all of these different things that are not even my character started coming out of me. I'm not a shut down person. I'm not a snappy person. I'm vibrant. I'm happy. I'm usually speaking loudly. I'm laughing. I'm smiling. So, what is it that happened to me so quickly that changed everything? Well, if you're like me and you've experienced triggers, you realize that triggers take you to places that you don't even consent to go. And oftentimes you don't even know where you really are. When I'm triggered, it's hard to articulate where I am, but I recognize that in those spaces is incredibly dangerous for me because I begin to make victim decisions. I start to grasp at anything to get out of that space. And I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but have you ever tried to get into a new relationship when you're in a place of being triggered and traumatized? When you're trying to pick what you're going to do for your next activity and you're triggered and traumatized. And usually, if I'm triggered or I'm traumatized, I start making the worst decisions that will take the longest time to get over. And so I recognized and I made a decision that triggers were not going to own me anymore. I was going to coach myself on how to respond to triggers so that triggers no longer run me. And I want to show you how I did it because I think it might help you as well. If that would be helpful to you, go ahead and put a one in the chat. I would love to hear from you because I want to talk about how we get to a place where triggers are no longer running us. The first thing I had to do was ask myself a question. And the question is this: what is happening right now? What's going on? I had to stop and recognize that the way that I was behaving was uncommon for me. And many of us have lived lives so freely that we lack the awareness that when we get into certain spaces where we have been triggered and hurt and we start to act differently, we don't even have a finger on that. And so we wind up taking long periods of time making bad decisions because we never stopped to ask, what is it that's going on with me right now? But man, I had the opportunity to just pause and recognize that I was not myself. And when I recognized that I was not myself and I asked, what's happening right now? Secondly, I started to ask myself, where did this start? Well, I wasn't in any physical danger. I wasn't speaking to a person who could affect my employment. I wasn't in a place where my marriage was challenged or anything like that. This was just a regular conversation. But that trigger took me somewhere where I felt vulnerable, unsafe, in danger. So I had to ask myself, where did that start? Where did it begin that when having those types of interactions, felt unsafe, where I was vulnerable and unable to protect myself well? When I looked back, I realized it went all the way to childhood. When I was a kid, if you were inarticulate and you got things wrong, you got laughed at, you got scolded. It was just not a good thing not to know. I mean, some of y'all come from um, contexts that are part of the African diaspora. And if you've ever been around your parents when they are annoyed or they don't have a whole lot of energy and you start asking questions or you take a little too long to do something, there were some swift consequences that came with that. And I developed a complex that was requiring me to come off as perfect because subconsciously I believed that imperfection and a lack of precision meant punishment. Somebody needs to write that down. That imperfection and a lack of precision meant punishment. And so when I come off as imprecise, when I make mistakes in public, there is something in me that starts to go haywire because I believe that there's danger. That started when I was a kid. And this is the place that is almost magical, but definitely the grace of God. It is the place where I get to understand what's happening with me. I get to identify where it started, and I can pause and make a decision that it stops here. If that would be a blessing to you, to go ahead and make that pivot mentally and emotionally, put it in the chat. It stops here. I'm not going to be run by this trigger anymore. I can't do anything about the triggers that I haven't picked up on today. When I get to the next trigger, I'll get to that trigger. But for now, this trigger stops here. I am going to nail this thing down so that it no longer controls me. It's not going to make me overeat. It's not going to make me make rash decisions. It's not going to make me go off on my husband or go off on my people. It stops here. And so I determined what I would do when I felt that trigger again. I was going to make sure that I shared with the person who was engaging that trigger that this does not make me feel good. Now, people sometimes go into a place where our triggers make us want to get somebody told, but oftentimes that causes us to burn bridges we don't have to. So I'm going to own my power. I'm not in danger. I'm not in a place where I am vulnerable. So I'm going to let the person know in the clearest way possible the way that this conversation goes right now is making me feel uncomfortable. I feel uncomfortable. So once I determine a boundary, then now I can decide if the way that the person I'm speaking to and engaging denotes to me a change of mind and a change of behavior. And if that behavior does not change with a person who is triggering me, then I have the power to remove myself. Now I am empowered to protect myself, my peace, my mindset, and to protect my lifestyle so that I'm not making crazy decisions in a moment of distress. And I think that this might be a good moment for you to take a journal, maybe go in the restroom or go somewhere wherever your quiet place is, and think about the last time you felt triggered like that, where somebody took you to a place that you cannot verbally identify, where they were able to deconstruct you and to break you down with a couple of words. And I want you to ask yourself just internally, what's happening right now? Then I want you to get to the bottom of where it started. And if you give yourself a moment, you might be able to do that sometimes. And I have been greatly helped with Christian counseling. Sometimes you can go to a Christian counselor to share with them, I experienced the trigger. I want to get to the bottom of it. They are especially trained with tools to help you to do that. But if you can do it yourself, then you can just get down to the bottom. Where did it start? Man, sometimes when you see where it is that it started, you still do need to go to a counselor to get that worked out. Okay. But then after you recognize that you've been triggered and you've recognized where it started, I want to share with you that you have the power to choose how you end this thing. And I speak life over everyone who is on the call, or everyone who is watching live, or who is watching later on. I speak life over you. You shall live and not die. I believe that God is able to walk you through the journey to getting to the power to remove yourself from places that are toxic for you. And I can't wait to hear how God blesses you. In fact, won't you come back to this video if you get a breakthrough? You don't have to take, the time to put all your business in there, but just, I got the breakthrough would be wonderful to hear, because I want to see the people of God, those who know they're people of God and those who don't quite know just yet. I want to see all of us free from triggers. Again, I'm Dr. Lola Moore Johnston. I'm your Bloom coach, and I am here to empower women of color to thrive in life and business. And I would love to continue to connect with you. Let's connect later. Have a wonderful day. God bless you.